my name is Jean-Claude Mugenzi, and I'd like to talk to you, maybe listen to you, and learn from you since you've been having a wonderful time here in Rwanda, right?
The countryside was interesting. It was cold, it rained. I enjoyed it.
I'm sure for most of you it's your first time here in Rwanda, but what surprised you? What did you not expect? Shirley?
One thing that I hear most, and it was true to my expectations, is that this country is very, very clean. And today I was counting the amount of paper we can find in the streets, and we walked for 5 minutes and we saw one paper. It was just one teeny weeny paper, and it's unlike my country where paper is everywhere and there's dirt everywhere. I can't believe that we were in the downtown and we saw one. After 5 minutes of walking, it was just one paper. So I'm impressed. I didn't know it was that true.
Now, Mr. Mshanga, the other time I called Debbie and I caught her in the middle of a dance down in Butare. You guys have been getting royal treatment.
The time we were in Butare, in all places that we have been, they have been treating us more than their beloved sons. To me, it is more than royal treatment. It is that of the highest level, yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. I'm proud of this country too. I love this country. But we haven't always been proud of our history. I'm sure you've learned about the genocide against Tutsis, especially when you visited the genocide memorial here and in Murambi. So what was your impression after that visit? Do you go back with any answers to your questions, Mr. Mandela?
It was mainly the evil side of man coming out, the psychology of what can lead to what happened. It's so easy for everyone to follow whatever is being done just on the premise that everyone is doing it. Seems like the right thing to do even if it's wrong.
You also saw Ghost of Rwanda, that movie. So what did you take away from that movie?
I would actually say it was quite a very terrifying experience that I believe even though you're like more psychologically stable, you still have nightmares. Yes, I still have them. Yeah, sometimes, like flashback.
I'd like to ask Emmanuel, who's haunted by what? Who is affected by those nightmares?
I have come to discover that even myself as someone who comes from South Sudan, I can have that impression, that trauma, and completely getting lost in my mind. Sometimes I may begin thinking, am I alive really? Because these are things that I can see. So it sends back to me, if I, who came to Rwanda after 20 years, what about the person who saw when these individuals were being chopped, killed, stoned? He might be having a nightmare, or somehow psychologically he may not really feel well. Number two is, I know the perpetrators themselves may not feel that they're really human beings, because reflecting on what they have done, the inhuman treatment of a fellow person.
Many people say that the genocide against Tutsis could have been prevented. Even those who could have prevented it say so. But how preventable was it, Catherine? Were you, by the way, watching when it happened, or were you still?
Actually, I had a nightmare about it. I was about 4, and believing the people live in the TV, and I saw the news like guns, soldiers, and at the night, I had a nightmare that one of the bullets passed through the TV and the soldiers were coming out at our home. So I'll never forget that event until when I came here, and it felt so real. And the fact that all the signs were there. We went to the museum and we saw that note that was sent by the UN peacekeeper. Yeah, that there was someone who came and reported to them like there are some serious training going on. Something is coming up. The speeches that were going, it was crazy enough to see 10 amendments of Hutu. It was like a plain picture. It's like it was not a rocket science. You could really see it. And the answer that was very disappointing was that international community, African Union or any other country didn't do anything because they saw Rwanda as a failed state. They didn't have interest on it. So those kind of answer shows that there's a little that we could depend outside sometimes, while the signs were very, very clear from the beginning.
We know cases where an African country flew literally to the rescue of a neighbor. What happened in this case? Nobody came. We were here waiting. I
don't exactly know what happened really, but they knew that the genocide was happening because it was like passing almost on each and every TV, like around the world. Like for example, she saw it and she was in Tanzania. Romeo Dalel, who was around, he's the one who asked for many soldiers to help to keep security into the country, but they refused to send them. It's not fair. It's unfair. So they should have acted before, and maybe like after try to find if it's genocide after, but after saving the population. Thank you.
The genocide was committed in a way that the perpetrators believed that it would never be prosecuted. Yet they were in a very special way. That Gacaca system early on, was it an effective system to judge such a crime?
Gacaca was very, very important because if there was no Gacaca, I think that till now there could be many, many persecutors who were outside just killing other people, who knows, or just planning how they can again do the genocide or do other crimes.
I remember something at PBI. I think it was you, Mr. Mandela. By the way, how did you come up with that? Walter Mandela? Maybe Nelson Sisulu, is that you too?
No, the Walter comes from Walter Sisulu, and then the Mandela is from Nelson Mandela. So it's an amalgamation.
Very good one, congratulations. Now, I remember you saying at PBI that Gacaca as a system outperformed ICTR. How does such a small system outperform the elephant?
What I meant is that if one looks at the volume of prosecutions that were successfully conducted between the Gacaca vis-a-vis the ICTR, and then also when you consider the amounts of money which were involved, because the Gacaca system within 10 years cost $40 million, while the ICTR cost $1 billion. So if you look at the sheer gap in the amounts involved, and then you look at the results that were delivered, the Gacaca really was way more successful than the ICTR.
Thank you, Walter or Mandela. What do you go by?
Any work.
Good. Now, Gacaca did a great service to our country, but was the system perfect? What did you notice throughout your PBI, throughout your conversations at PBI?
Thanks. About Gacaca systems, some principles, according to international classic justice, was not successfully used. But what people first were claiming is for justice, and delaying justice, denial justice. First, Gacaca, even if didn't use those principles, but the target was first to get justice and then to reconcile our population.
Now tell me, how do you reconcile two groups of people after such a crime as genocide? That's a daring move, right? How do you go about that?
One maybe should first look at the objectives of putting in place the Gacaca courts. It was for helping the Rwandan society, the Rwandan citizens to reconcile through a kind of traditional justice, because this is or it was a Rwandan solution to a problem which arose from Rwanda itself. The victims all together with the killers sitting one hearing to another. This was a way of helping the victims or the Rwandans as a whole to know what is the truth. And in fact, the truth, knowing the truth, is the beginning. It's a starting point of reconciling the citizens, the Rwandans. I think this is what the system really did. Because when you know that some of you are in jail for years and years, and yet you are staying with the victims, this is not a way of reconciling people and healing the Rwandan citizens. I think Gacaca helped in that way.
You went to the museum, you've also learned a lot of history at PBI, and you've learned about ethnic division in Rwanda. So what do you go away with? What do you take away about this division? Well, was it an invention of the colonialists, as some say, or was it something like a local product? What do you think about that? What did you learn?
I think so many things has been clear to me after my attendance to PBI forums, and as a neighbor, I am a Burundian, and as a neighbor to Rwanda, I know the history of Rwanda, the colonial period, what happened, what they brought to us, how they bring this system of divide and rule. And what I have learned throughout this institute is that politicians in Rwanda, I mean former politicians who call the genocide, the ideology of genocide, instead of loving the people, teaching them that the ideology of colonialism to divide, they did not do that. I saw it while we were visiting, we were reading throughout the stories from Rwandan colonialism. You see that they built on that issue of division. They divided people instead of reconciling them.
I know it was Shirley who said that at PBI. I was just pretending, and I'm glad you're challenging the status quo. We need that. And now, after genocide, the country decided to go on the path of reconciliation. But given what you've learned, what you've been talking about at PBI, what do you think about that reconciliation process? Do you think it's really taken hold?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. I remember thinking, right after we left Murambi, I was thinking, how can such a beautiful country with such simple living people, people full of life and love and acceptance, how can they have gone through such atrocities? And I think it's very evident, and I applaud that the country has undergone a major transformation, not just physically where you can see that this happened and everybody has their injuries to remember, but you can see that everybody in the country is aiming towards a more happier and better future rather than looking back. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Mshanga, do you think there is something, a lesson from this reconciliation process you could apply to your country if, God forbid, one ethnic group was to attack or kill another one? What would you do?
I grasp a serious lesson that whenever you see the very smallest stages of genocide started to be portrayed in the society, there is a very critical role to play to make sure that those symptoms are cleared out. The little misunderstandings that are happening in my country, like you find there are some tribes conflicting on land. These are saying this is our land, the other are saying this is our land. And also there has been some sort of conflicts between Muslims and the Christians in some cases, specifically in the Ireland, where it reached the extent of some of the extreme Muslims burning the churches of the Christians. And also there were some sort of looking for something like revenge, something that is not at all in Rwanda. So I came to realize after learning this serious program of peacebuilding and transitional justice and all the reconciliation mechanisms that have been applied in Rwanda throughout the time since the genocide happened, at every stage there is a need to cultivate sense of peace and to build that sense to all people, specifically young people, because they are the one who can transform the society.
Now, Fabrice, the other day I was at Umushyikirano Summit. By the way, who knows Umushyikirano here? Oh, you do? You're the man, you have the microphone. All right. Now, at Umushyikirano, there was this presenter called Again Rwanda, a Ugandan journalist, and one of the things he said is Rwanda was lucky because during the genocide, it's not an external force that stopped the tragedy. It's other Rwandans who stopped it. So what he meant was solutions that come from within. So what do you think about that statement? And what do you do with international cooperation?
I think strongly that at a certain point, the statement, I would agree with it, because we have seen all throughout the history of with the forum we had in Peacebuilding Institute, that the international community has really left Rwanda to its, they don't have interest in Rwanda. I would remember in the Ghost of Rwanda, I don't remember well the name of the guy who was in America. So they said, they asked them to shut off the frequency of radio in Rwanda. Then they said that would be violating their constitution in freedom of expression and freedom of speech. So I would say the reason why I agree with that statement of Mwenda, it's because we had no other way. There were no other way out. So we had to find solutions in ourselves, and which I believe is a strong concept. If every African country can sit and refresh back on having solutions of their problem from themselves, not looking at the world. Yeah, we should have the world network. We should network with different countries. But for a problem or for an issue as genocide, as it happened in Rwanda in 1994, I think the better solution would be actually now finding solutions within ourselves. I really agree with that statement, and I would take it for a court as a court in different forums. Thank you.
Regina, I know most of you are social media experts, right?
In training.
In training? Yeah. Somebody at PBI said that you were determined to use your social media skills to do good, contrary to what hate media did. So what are you planning to do now once you go back home?
Social media is very effective in my country. We have Kotu on Twitter, Kenyans on Twitter, and Facebook, the hashtags, they're always working. So the best thing to do about it is when hate is spread is you become the voice. You stand for what you believe in, especially for peaceful demonstration to certain actions that could be happening. In my country, mainly, we are always fighting on social media over political parties that are mostly tribal-based. So the best thing to do about it is to put the hate aside and find solutions on a less tribal manner.
You graduate in 2 days, right? Countdown has started.
Yes.
What is your relationship with Rwanda going to be like? I'd like to ask you, Shirley, how's, what's it going to be like?
First things first, I want to come back. I want to come back. I know.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah,
Not yet. Not yet, but I'm looking. I'm on the lookout. Anyway, Rwanda has transformed my life. I'm a student of peace and conflict studies, and I feel like here it's everything that I've learned in my classes for 4 years, because I'm almost graduating. For 4 years, it's applicable here. I see it firsthand. If it's conflict, I see conflict and how it has been solved. If it's governance, I've seen how governance has changed the society, and at the same time how governance has, destroyed the society. So I've seen, also in terms of criminal justice, I've seen how criminal justice has transitioned from just being the classical, normal, let me say for now, boring classical justice, to a hybrid system that indulges thinking, that involves, something better. So I feel like Rwanda is becoming an example of what society can be. Everything that every leader wants to achieve has nearly 90% of it has been done here. And to me, that is just marvelous, and I can't help it. I think I want to come back and learn more and go back home and tell people, well, you better be working towards something better, because there's a country out there that, has done it, has come from the ashes to greater things.
So it's like Rwanda has performed miracles. How does a country perform miracles, right after a tragedy like the genocide? Do you see those miracles happening? Just, like Shirley says, she's in love with Rwanda, maybe understandably so. What have you seen, Mr. Mandela?
The miracle worker in this case would actually be two things. Firstly, it would be the will of the people to actually develop themselves, because they've overcome a lot together, and they've held hands, as friend and foe, as victim and murderer, and they've moved on. So, firstly, the miracle is attributable to the will of the people, which is to move forward and develop. And then secondly, it's the political will to do so. The facts speak for themselves. So I believe Rwanda has been able to achieve what it has achieved, and is going to continue achieving even more because of the union of those two things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mandela. Now back to Christine. You graduate in 2 days. Now tell the whole world, what do you take home? What should they know? Very briefly.
Oh, first they should know I'm called Catherine.
All right, got me.
But also, as Mandela has pointed out, there's a small country between major sleeping giants of Africa, Congo and Tanzania. You can call us big countries, but they're doing wonders. And they're the most loving people. They're very humble and kind. This country is so secure. We are used to working, wondering if my past will be going to be teared away. But also, it's like they are having generations of people that are mixing very well. The intergenerational conversation that's going on from those who experience the bad stuff, those who are growing up not knowing the story, just hearing it, they are being told in a manner that they are both avoided of the trauma, that they don't know the thing that they never experienced, which is also a very good thing. For Rwanda, you see that the young people and the old people, both who experience and both who just hear the story, they have the same zeal not to want to experience it again. Something that we should take because the intergenerational gap, it's what makes most of the time the legends to be forgotten.
Bonaventure, is there anything Burundians didn't know or that they should know that you will share with them after your experience here at PBI in Rwanda?
Really, you cannot understand what is happening in Uganda. compare the development we have achieved to the atrocity, the level of evil that you went through, the hell you went through, we can still believe that we can also make it. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Mshanga, you get the last word.
Okay. Yeah, I love seeing people being happy because it shows peace is there. One word that I can always tell the world is that genocide can be prevented if everybody plays his or her role. We should always know that international community is there, but we should not always depend the international community, because international community is there for international community, and probably Rwanda is not international community. So I get a serious lesson that we should always focus on preventing the occurrence of genocide. So the one way that I can say to my people in Tanzania is that we should cherish the values that Mwalimu left to us, our founder, Mwalimu J.K. Nyerere, because I came to realize destroying a peace is very easy, but reconstructing, reconciling people and have peace as it was is something very difficult. So the lessons that I learned in Rwanda and how people have struggled to reconcile peace, I think are very enough to make me an ambassador of peace. And I will always be a serious ambassador of peace wherever I am. And I updated even this one in my profile that I'm now a real ambassador of peace throughout my life. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.